Okay, I'm gonna do this video. It needs to be done, and actually, it's working all hand in glove together this evening. With the incident that happened, jihadist attack, might as well call it what it is, not an incident. It was a jihadist attack in D.C. on the National Guard members there. This all plays in. I did the first part a while back. You can check here on YouTube on the Muslim Brotherhood's plan for America. You can look on there. I showed the actual pamphlet and a memorandum that goes along with that. Back in 1990, as I get my other phone over here, got something pulled on it. I'm gonna need in a minute. Bridget Gabriel, who is with Act for America, I think she's an Iranian who used to be a Muslim, converted to Christianity and born again Christian, as far as what she claims and says. Been following her for a long time. She's solid. She had exposed and put me onto what's called the Muslim Brotherhood's Plan for America. She does it through her Act for America organization, actforamerica.org, if you want to find out more about her organization. If you join her organization and do some things, you can get that Muslim Brotherhood's Plan for America from her, but it's kind of like you got to pay for it. Well, what I'm going to do in this second series is explain to you where you can get the Muslim Brotherhood Plan for America, as I turn notifications off on my other phone here. Okay. Center for Security Policy was started and run by a man named Frank Gaffney, with a lot of other former intel guys. Now, Frank Gaffney, if I remember correctly, he worked for Ronald Reagan. I do know that. Remember, I have my memory bank here. And he actually was the, I think, national security chief for Ronald Reagan. They do a think tank called Center for Security Policy. If you go into DuckDuckGo or Google, whatever search engine you use, and put in Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney, Muslim Brotherhood PDF, it'll bring that PDF up, and you can actually go in there and print that booklet out that I had shown in the first part one. And if you're part of our Second Amendment group here in the Shenandoah Valley, which this whole YouTube thing was created for and out of, you can go into the files on top of the Facebook group and download it straight from the files, the memorandum and the full Muslim Brotherhood plan. On a side note, talking about this morning, I was watching Steve Bannon from the War Room on Real America's Voice. He had Laura Loomer on there, who Loomer has been covering the jihadist thing and informing Trump about it a lot, and is in depth on it. I've been telling people locally and around me for 10 years at least, since I found out about this in 93, probably from Bridget Gabriel about it, and then finally probably about early 2000 found the Muslim Brotherhood plan from Frank Gaffney here. She said that in that Muslim Brotherhood plan and book, if you read it and read how it reads out, we're in the middle to end of it, where the Muslims come in with their silent jihad and come in with what they call Ta'ika or Teek, something like that. I can't get the word exactly right because it's an Islamic Arabic word, where they come in as Mendami has, and Hosman, what's her name, is Lieutenant Governor of Virginia here, as being going along with the system we have here, the Constitution, acting really nice, winning everybody over, and then as they gain power within political structures, because they can't defeat us militarily as a military, they do it through silent jihad, is what it's called, until they get the numbers. Now, what we saw today, and Laura Loomer said, we're at the end of the part where they go into the governments and everything and embed themselves. They've been doing that for years. And Bridget Gabriel gave out some statistics the other day that I want to share with you guys. In our election in Virginia, we know, one, it was rigged. Two, everybody that got voted in, a bunch of commies and jihadists mixed together, red, green alliance. That'd be another video for another day. Bridget Gabriel was on Real America's Voice, and I got on my PC over here. They covered some of the news from earlier today with the National Guard, so I've been watching that and getting information I'm going to share with you guys in a minute from at least one of the sources I had. Bridget Gabriel was talking about the elections and whatnot, and I'm going to be referring to Virginia, since that's where we're from in my Second Amendment group that we all have here in the Shenandoah Valley 2A. work in. She was mentioning Virginia in her talk of the Muslim Brotherhood embedding themselves into offices, whether local, state, or whatever, and especially in the state of Virginia, in different states. And the state of Virginia was actually put into the same wording with New York, Minnesota, and a few other states that already have jihadists. More than Texas, yeah, where they're doing the Epic City. So she said across the country, on top of Virginia, where Hassami, what's her name, from is lieutenant governor here, and then also Madami, who is in New York now and is the governor there, all Muslim Brotherhood plants, by the way, from the Muslim Brotherhood's plan I'm talking about here. She gave us the statistics of how many of these Islamic jihadists have been put in different places across the country last election, when the New Jersey and Virginia here, we had our elections. So she said across the country, I got a paper right here, I wrote down everything she was talking about. There were 5 mayors, and Madami at New York was one of them, 4 statewide legislative and other positions, 6 educational school boards positions across the country, 2 judicial and county offices across the country, 20 city town councils, local levels, what they're looking at. If you are in a locality and never considered to run for office in your local level, I highly decide you do it, because they're coming in your counties. They'll take over your boards of supervisors, town council, city council, whatever you have. Then they'll start implementing their laws and slowly taking over, kind of like the old frog mentality of boil the frog slowly. That's what the United States has been. UK has, and they're already boiled and cooked. The United States is on the way to being cooked if we don't stop it right now. That's why I'm covering this. So at your local level, make sure that you're putting good people in there so that the Islamic take over your personal county. I live in a town of approximately 22,000, and we try to get good people in here running our county and watch out for this. So they, even a little town like us and smaller, they want to take over. They want every inch. If you don't know, Islam means submit. So they want everybody to submit to them. That's what all this is about, is to slowly get you to submit. They want 20 city councils and town councils, as I mentioned, the commissions, and 3 other positions. And on top of winning the lieutenant governorship in Virginia, the mayorship in Minnesota, and they're all over the place in different localities throughout the country. But this particular election, 5 mayors, 4 statewide legislative positions, 6 education school board positions, 2 judicial and county offices, 20 city town councils and commissioners positions, and 3 other positions. So you can see the plan is to go in, take over the levers of power, and steal Sharia law. And once they get those numbers and the authority, they start doing violence like we saw today. And that's what Laura Loomer was mentioning this morning on the Steve Bannon show on Real America's Voice. If you don't watch it, I highly suggest you watching that. You'll get a lot of good information there, not just from him, but from Jack Posobiec, who is a former intel guy who had a lot on the shooting today I'm getting ready to share with you, and that type thing. So definitely go to the Center for Security Policy and put in put in on your search engine Center for Security Policy Frank Gaffney Muslim Brotherhood PDF, and it'll bring it up. You should be able to print it out and share it with everybody you know. Get the word out so these guys are. And why do they want to do this? This is we covered the Second Amendment. Why in Virginia is all this going on in other places? They want to water down and strip the Second Amendment rights and liberties we have. To, if you're disarmed, you're what? A slave. Yes, a slave. They want us to slave to Islam, slave to communism. And if you don't understand it, I'll get into this. Like I said, this will be on down the line, and probably a little while yet. Red, Green Alliance. To give you a promo, that is the liberal, progressive, communist, which is China, Russia, all of them, plus the traitors we have in our country that are CIA plants, like our governor coming in, Abigail Spamberger, as I call her, Abigail Spamberger, and that are in league with the jihadists, which is the green part, Red Green Alliance. So that's what we have. They're working to destroy, subvert, and destroy our country, and we can see that every day right now in the news. Now, going into the activities and the jihadist attack, so they come in, they get authority, they get power, they get numbers, like they have in Dearborn, like they have in New York, as you saw right after Madami got put in his mayor, they go into the middle of Times Square, take it over, and start doing the Muslim prayer. That's how they operate. And when most Americans have no idea what's going on, I've been preaching all this for years, and now it's happening. Everybody, it was on Fox News. The CIA is running a coup, which is the Red Green Alliance. The black hats in the CIA are working with the commies, or the black hats are commies in the three-digit agencies, and they work with the jihadists to take everything down, to take Trump out. They go on TV and have seditious talk like the 6 politicians did. They're all part of the Red Green Alliance. That's just the way it is, and they're lumped in. The Muslim Brotherhood, Russia. The cartels, China, that has all these illegals that are here. There's like 10,000 divisions of Chinese here. We'll get into that another day. They want us disarmed. Why? Because all these people are here. It's all part of the plan. The Muslim Brotherhood has their plan. China has unrestricted warfare. Then they have a collaboration of the Red Green Alliance of, like I said, the communists and the Muslims. Then you got the cartels in Venezuela. There's going to be some stuff coming out with Venezuela and linked to other countries where now this is a tidbit coming out in the news for long. They have been rigging our elections for 20 years in 72 other countries. And that's why stuff's been happening lately. It's been happening. The deep state, the Red Green Alliance, all these people do not want this coming out because it will absolutely destroy everything that they have in place. And that's why your politician, who, whether it's a right wing or left wing, it's all the same bird, as they say. They don't care about us at this level. All they're worried about is protecting this system and all this stuff the way it's happening within the government. They don't really care. Now, back to the subject today, the Muslim Brotherhood. Just so you know, the guy, I couldn't attempt to say his name, was a 29-year-old Afghan. He was brought here in 21 under the Biden Afghan program when he had that whole debacle when the military pulled out of Afghanistan and the Marines got killed at the Abbey Gate. This is one of those guys that was brought here from that, and it is also reported now that he has a DOD background. This is from an investigative reporter from Real America's Voice I heard earlier. I ain't heard nowhere else. Other people, Fox News and others said we have heard, but we can't confirm. Well, these guys confirmed it before they announced it, so they've come out with it first. I'm going to say it. He had a DOD background, the jihadist who shot the National Guard guys. He is known to be an interpreter. Okay. Here's what happened in the incident, and it's been reported in some places now. So I get the information, I hold it until a few places report it, then I'll come out with it and talk about it here on YouTube, even when it comes to Second Amendment or whatever. So basically what happened was the jihadist was in a vehicle, come up, started shooting at the National Guardsman, and shot the one male guardsman, shot at the female one. A lieutenant was coming around, from what I understood, and was doing a check on the guardsmen on duty. It's kind of like you're an officer, you're going around and check on the men as they're on their guard post. And he saw what was going on, ducked behind the vehicle. The jihadist started shooting at him. He pulled a pocket knife out, the National Guard lieutenant did, officer, and charged the jihadist attacker while he was reloading and stabbed him in the head. Another guardsman who was armed actually took his pistol and shot him in the head, and that's at the point where they were able to subdue him. The two guardsmen that he had shot were armed, but evidently couldn't get to their weapons in the, I guess, seated position they were in. I think they said they were in a vehicle. So that all happened, and while he was doing all this, he did at some point Allahu Akbar. That is like, God is great, praise God, while they're doing the attack on the infidels that they consider us as. You do understand that all these people, the ones that come over here, are totally incompatible with the Constitution, because when they come in through whether they come in through legal immigration or not and become a citizen, and they take the constitutional oath to become a citizen, they're not serious about it, because according to their belief system, I ain't even calling it a religion, they actually cannot do that willfully. And back to the Tika that I mentioned, Teukka, something like that it's spelled. They're allowed to go along with the infidel system, knowing that they're lying the whole time they're doing it, just like the city councilman is doing in Dearborn, Michigan, like Mendami is doing right now when he went to see Trump or whatever. Oh yeah, by the way, I knocked over my pens. I have a nice bullet Shield 60 cal there, and one there. That for those guys who know me that are local, Strasburg, Virginia, there's a guy up there that makes these bullet casing pins. They're really nice. Anyway, but yeah, so they come in, they lie, do what they can, and to win you over. And then once they have their authority again, silent jihad, they will turn violent. Now, since a lot of these people have established conclaves here in the Shenandoah Valley, there's actually a mosque, which in the Muslim Brotherhood Plan for America, when they populate an area, they call the mosque a Islamic center. Now, have some friends of mine that are door kickers in the Fallujah Triangle when all that was going down over there. The mosque are made, for one thing, according to Allah, or Muhammad, let me get it right, Muhammad. The mosque are for planning strategic takeovers of an area and storing and planning in there for that, as in storing weapons, ammunition, planning, etc. That's why they don't call them mosque in America. It's in the Muslim Brotherhood's plan I'm talking about. They don't want to trigger people in the United States, say we got a mosque. We have an Islamic center. So there's an Islamic center in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and there's one in Front Royal, Virginia. And in between those two localities, there's two main interstates, 81 and a side road. It's called Route 11, which is more goes to the local towns, the interstate, and they run parallel side by side. If you went down through that valley, the group called Church World Services and other NGOs here in the Shenandoah Valley sprinkled all kinds of illegals from Mexicans, Hispanics, Venezuelans, whatever, and Muslims from various parts of the Middle East. In between those spots are those two mosques are in Harrisonburg and Front Royal, Virginia, and they are very heavily populated now. In the town I'm in, we don't have as many here because it isn't as accepted over here as it is in the two more populated areas on the other side over a mountain that we are from those localities. But they are all around the area, and that's their plan, is to sprinkle all these people out. I used to work at a local college around here called Eastern Mennonite University, and at least once a year they would have that Islamic center in to do a prayer and have food and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what exactly they were celebrating, but they'd come in there and do their prayers on the court, and had the Muslims in to do all their jihadist rituals in there. And I thought it was rather nuts myself, but they did also support them, and that's another video for another day to go into how that college was connected to Linda Sarsauer. For those of you guys who know who that is, was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States when Trump was in the first time, organized the Women's March when Trump was in the first time, and all that chaos broke out at his inauguration. So she was part of that. She was connected to that college, or one of her surrogates were. We had some Antifa there also that were part of throwing things around and causing havoc in Trump's first inauguration there in 2016. So I've been following this stuff for a long time, know a lot about it, especially the jihadist stuff. I could go on about that, but basically wanted to cover that and show you that in the state of Virginia, they don't end with this. For you guys from Virginia that's going to see this in the Shenandoah Valley, and from the Second Amendment group and any other group that's in the Valley. They want to disarm us of all these anti-Second Amendment gun laws and legislation and code and whatever else they're come up with. They're modeling a lot off of Maryland and even going further than Maryland has, just for one reason. They're in league again, Red Green Alliance. Remember, all the pieces of the puzzle fit together for one agenda, and it's all this is about control. Once they get control and get the patriots, the good-loving American people who love America, liberty, freedom, republic, and they have TDS, don't like Trump, which I voted for Trump, like him, but he's not done everything the way I like. That's another thing for another day. I don't think he's very strong in the Second Amendment, for instance. He doesn't, Pam Bondi, he put her in a DOJ. If you're in the Second Amendment group, you can see the stuff I posted in there. The NFA, she's for, and did some things to promote that. Now she's creating a gun rights department or something with the DOJ. So they're talking out both sides of their mouth there. Trump was for the ban on bump stocks, which is basically for people that were handicapped, veterans, and getting people that weren't, got them just because they could bump and shoot a little faster or whatever. But then you had people like the Republicans you can't rely on, like Red Flag Dan Crenshaw out of Texas, who was for that. NRA was for that. NRA ain't that great. But Trump, the point is, Trump isn't that very strong or knowledgeable on the Second Amendment. He gets up there when he runs for office or whatever. I'm for the Second Amendment. He's not for, he hasn't passed reciprocity for that. But all of it's to one agenda, to disarm us, to make us victims and be like the route that UK and London went down. New York's going to become London, basically. They're going to take that over, and of course, they already can't own firearms there. But they don't want anybody in this country to own firearms, but their security and their people. And for you guys that don't know, I do work private armed security, so I understand this. I've worked some volunteer security before I started working private armed security. And yeah, they want you all disarmed just so that only their security and the military and their police, for instance, New York, for instance, Dearborn, Michigan, the police chief and the people that run the police department there got rid of all the American-born officers, and now in Dearborn, Michigan, all you have is Muslims from the Dearborn, Michigan area on the police force who probably aren't even legal, probably some of them. And then in New York City, they have police cars now since Mandami got in there, but basically they're going to call no-go zone areas in the Muslim heavy areas that look like the New York police cars, and the uniforms look like the New York, and they're their own police. Right now, I don't believe, I may correct me wrong, they're not carrying firearms, but they're dressed like the New York Police Department, and they're mirroring them. I should get that word out right. And then in Minnesota, they made a Somali refugee immigrant, let's say illegal. Let's put it that way. Well, the Constitution says they're illegal immigrants, so they're illegals. They actually made that guy the sheriff in some area there in Minnesota. How in the world does a Somali come here, and you know he probably ain't legal, and winds up being a sheriff? I don't know. But that place is so taken over now with all the Somali illegals there. I don't know if you can get it back unless Trump really comes out swinging after this stuff going on with the National Guard and goes after all these illegals. And I heard I'll end with this one particular Lieutenant Army Colonel retired on Real America's Voice. They was talking about this and said Trump needs to go harder than he has now to this point. He said he'd done a lot of good stuff and had wrote hundreds of executive orders when he come in, unprecedented. But a Manhattan-style project level, as is the heavy importance of that, and how impactful and a turning point in history that was, that Trump has to do mass deportations on a level like that now with these jihadists and Muslims that are here that are incompatible with the United States, the Constitution, our way of life, as we can see. Because if not, we're going to keep going down this rabbit hole, everybody. We're going to go down this rabbit hole where they're just peaceful Muslims now. And that one, peaceful Muslims, other than Bridget Gabriel, there's a few other people who've converted from Islam to that are from the Middle East that are former not jihadists, but former Muslims, and that what they call ideology or religion. Ayaan Hirsi Ali was, if you don't know, they do genital mutilation at 12, 13. Within that, she got away from the country basically somehow. I wasn't a lot of her talk. She speaks out about the perils and the downside of Islam and how evil it is, and they got a hit out on her trying to take her out. I haven't seen her for a long time, but I followed her for a long time studying and listening to what she had to say about how evil the Muslim Islamic jihadist religion is and ideology. Then you got Zuhdi Jasser was another person. That's a gentleman who was, I believe, a Navy admiral, if I remember right. And he's come out to talk about how radical Muslims and jihadism is bad. And I think he was also another one who had converted over to Christianity. So a lot of these come out of that. A lot of times the radical stuff. There is the majority of these, if you're not a full-on jihadist attacking National Guardsman, usually you have to be supporting it and putting money into it, into like CARE or whatever, to promote the silent jihad, even though you're not going total Allah Akbar shooting National Guardists and stuff. So basically, I know people who know certain, maybe few Muslim people, oh, well, they're so nice. They're nice for a reason. And the majority of them, even if they're nice, are still supporting it. They have to. Because if not, then the ones who are enforcing this stuff from the Islamic Center or whatever come to your house and say, hey, you're not supporting us. And enforce, I'm just putting it in a nutshell, basically. There's very few, I'm going to say very few, of these are in the Muslim jihadist religion, the Sunnis and the Shias. Trump's in the White House with the Saudi king. He's in there with a dude from Syria who had a gazillion-dollar bounty on his head for the United States before, and he was in Al-Qaeda. He's still Al-Qaeda, by the way. And had him in the West. No Muslim jihadist should be in the White House, period. I cannot stand that he did that. And he goes after Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's another video for another day, by the way. That looks really bad. But having jihadists in the White House, I don't agree with one bit. They should never see the Oval Office or step 1 inch in that White House. But when they designated recently, Trump did, and I'll leave you with this, the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, what it should be all of them. Now, see, the Qataris that he works with and the Saudis are also tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, but he can't make them terrorist organizations because then they wouldn't work with him. So he makes some in the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization, and then that's why you hear like, well, the splitter groups are going to make that and then chase the money back, and if they find more, will do whatever. Because he's going to walk the line of working with these. All of them are Muslim jihadists. I've heard of guys who've been over in the sandbox playing for years over there that the Sunnis and Shias don't like each other and they fight each other until the United States or somebody else comes over there. Then they'll join together and fight them until they get them out of there. Then they'll start fighting each other again. So they can't even get along with each other. I mean, and it comes down to it. The Hamas, the Hezbollahs, the Al-Qaedas, the ISIS are all going to come together. And on that note, I'll leave you at this. I just remember my last point. On my other phone over here, I have on X. I'm going to talk to you about this, about all the Muslims coming together. My energy's running out, so I need to hurry up. There's a group on Intel guys, former Intel guys and whatnot on X called Command 11. They have a thing on here where it talks about there's 40 global jihad groups we're linking together with, including Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. It says the U.S. claims the Taliban has been decimated. The Western powers said the narrative ISIS has been decimated. That Al-Qaeda, ISIS are stronger today than they ever been before. Opening under the Taliban regime, which would be in Afghanistan, has hosted over 40 global jihadist groups, including Al-Shabaab. I think they're out of Africa. And they got a video down here showing these guys all kitted and outfitted out, just like our military. Now is advanced, but like our military, marching with the black flag of ISIS over top their 15, 20 guys each in companies. With that being said, I'm going to go. My setup here is running out of energy, so I need to get off. But just wanted to leave it with you guys and keep your head on a swivel. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. I'm going to take a little bit of a break until Black Friday. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving tomorrow. And appreciate what you have. Thank God for our country. And it's pray for to protect it. And may keep your head on a swivel, because no telling what's going to happen between now and the first of the year over the holidays. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving. I'll see you again soon on here. Sic Semper Tyrannis.